Hi, and welcome to the 3D Basecamp Dimensions presentation for my second session. This was a session that, unfortunately, due to the registrations pre the conference, was cancelled as there weren't significant amount of signups, which is great for me because I could attend more sessions from other people, and I must say I thoroughly enjoyed all the sessions at the Basecamp workshops. However, when I presented my other session, which was about using gray boxing as a design technique for retail, I came across quite a few people who asked about the other session that I was going to host. So I promised them I would make sure to record this session, and as part of Trimble and SketchUp's effort to put all these sessions online, I am now recording this session from my home in South Africa, having fully prepared for it to show it to you at Basecamp. So we're now going to do some Basecamp online, and just to make sure that I was fully prepared, I even put my SketchUp name tag back on to really feel like I was back at the conference. This was originally meant to be a 4-hour-long session. It was going to be a workshop that was going to cover multiple aspects of design for retail, with a primary focus to window shop fronts. And what I had initially planned was to set up the session across 4 hours so that we cover some retail insights, some retail history, some current trends within shop front window design, and hence hopefully to create a bit of interest to people who weren't necessarily working in the retail industry. Then the second half of the 4 hours is going to be spent on demonstrating to you the workflow that I like to use. And then second to that was going to be this in-person experience. So I'm not going to do a 4-hour session now, don't worry. I'm going to do a 1.5 to 2 hour session. So I'm going to give you the breakdown of everything that I wanted to cover in the original presentation from the history and the current trends, and then I'll basically demonstrate to you the workshop element. Then feel free to follow along with that on your own laptop or computer, and then if you've got any questions, then do reach out to me on YouTube, LinkedIn, or wherever. So that for any further discussion or for any further workshops, ideas, and questions that you might have, we can then continue on making those recordings. Let me start walking through the slides. Okay, so the original title of the session was called Digital Twins in Retail, on how to revolutionize your retail window display campaigns from planning to installation. So here's me. I run a small design studio in South Africa, a work environment where young apprentices can thrive, as it says. To explain a little bit on that, I was born and raised in the Netherlands. I worked as a volunteer in an orphanage in Lesotho, a small landlocked country inside of South Africa. And having worked in that orphanage, I understood and realized the difficulty of transitioning as a young man or a young woman out of an orphanage. And so I realized in the last few years of my own professional career and becoming a business owner, how important it was to have a young person or young people on your team who as apprentices can learn the trade. Not everyone has the privilege or the financial ability to enter a college or get a scholarship for a degree. So these two young men in the middle, and Bongeni, and on the right hand side, Juku, they've worked with me for the last year and a half, and they don't have a degree beyond a high school diploma. What's nice or what's interesting is that as a trainer in the whole SketchUp environment, I now get to train them on SketchUp, but also on design thinking and design principles in retail, in architecture, and in event planning. So it really is a wonderful environment where I can train them, while at the same time I can train them in a way that is really suitable to the environment that they get to work in. So I suppose it's very specific training. All right, well, these are some of the tools that we like to use, that we like to focus on when we talk to you about our workflow. So here what we've got are all these different tool sets, physical and digital tools combined on one page. And these are some of our favorites. And you'll see throughout the demonstration that we really hone in on the tools that we like to use and try to make our workflows as accessible and as cost effective and efficient as possible, specifically with these tools. So what you'll see here is the Google Workspace suite. We use Affinity instead of Adobe for all our image processing and vector artwork. Of course, we use SketchUp, but we also use some iPad plugins or some iPad apps to do some laser scanning, to draw up some floor plans really easily. We've got our favorite Stanley measuring tool, but we also like to use pencils, and our favorite pencil is a Blackwing 602. So these are some of these tools. If you've got questions about these, feel free to ask, leave a comment in the video, or again, ask on LinkedIn what caught your eye, and how you would incorporate it in your workflow. Just let us know. All right, like all great businesses, the only thing you have to do as an entrepreneur is start in your garage. So when I started my business, I started in my garage. I'm glad to tell you the space doesn't look like this now, but rather like this. And so that's where Mbugeni is sitting. In South Africa, you don't really see Herman Miller chairs that often, but we've got three unique ones. So we've got some comfortable chairs. We've used OpenDesk to cut our own desks using a CNC machine in our local industrial area, and we've got a whole range of books. So we love AI and we love Pinterest and getting inspiration from all kinds of sources, but it's also really healthy to turn all your digital devices off, book some time in the studio to focus on design and design concepts, and not be too fussed by all the digital bells and whistles, and then return to some book format to get creative. In my day-to-day life, I've got a wonderful family, and I've got 5 children. So during this photo shoot, my children decided to join me and come and tell me about the food that they were eating that day. So we strike an odd balance in our studio, where in the afternoon when the kids come from school, they often tend to walk in every now and then. And so this puts things in perspective and helps us stay humble in our life, that work is work. It's not all there is. Our families are far more important. But we're glad to support our families, knowing what our work offers us. So back to the presentation. This is more than enough about me and the studio. This is about our topic of today, the retail environment of storefronts and digitizing that process, creating these digital twins. So I want to speak to you at first about what a digital twin is and how you want to use it. I want to speak to you about how the digital twin fits in with retail. Then I want to go through the retail environment, the history, where we currently find ourselves, where the industry is moving to. And then we're going to go into the physicality of it. So we're going to optimize the workflow using SketchUp and layout. The hands-on demo, of course, we're going to skip. So that's all going to be demonstrated to you in that workflow session. And then we're going to simply draw our conclusions. And again, there's no real Q&A here, but feel free to leave a comment in the video. All right, digital twins and retail, the first section. So if you think back to a digital twin as it was 20, 30 years ago, you come back to space agencies, right? NASA as an organization creates a digital model, and this digital model is virtual space to basically help the astronauts learn how to fly a rocket before they fly the physical rocket. So there's no SpaceX at that time. There's no frequent rocket flying. There are limited rockets and limited tryouts. So the more you could train in virtual space, the easier it would be. So you get this this simulation that you then take part in which you can test and monitor your flight capacity. So how do we take the digital twin information then into the world of SketchUp and retail? Well, we've got a SketchUp for desktop application, we've got our Trimble Connect as our cloud solution, and we've got our physical retail space. Now, the physical retail space with RFIDs and Wi-Fi and all other digital connectivity can speak back to the cloud. So you can integrate into Trimble with any of your plugins and your technology, and then you can communicate that back to your digital model in your SketchUp environment. So in retail, when we use a digital twin, and you see the process laid out here as an example store, it helps us a whole lot. Well, we can't all, working for a retailer that has multiple outlets, visit every single store spread around the country or spread around the province or a state. That would be bad for the environment, traveling so much, but it would also be very ineffective for your time and cost to your business. So we can enhance our visualizations and our design accuracy by creating multiple models of multiple stores. So we get a library of digital twins. We can collaborate between our teams. You can showcase a digital store to a team. You don't have to physically travel to that store with that team member or that group of people from another team. This will then, of course, reduce costs and make it more efficient because you save a lot of time from all this traveling. And then it improves installation precision. So as you have all the windows of the store and the depth and the height of the storefront all digitally mapped out, you can easily switch from one store to the next and create a campaign for all your stores using all these digital representations. Now, it is then, of course, also a scalable solution. So if you do one thing in one store, you can simply copy it over to all the other stores and then create a campaign that any marketing manager or marketing director can approve of, because they can see how each campaign element reflects in each store environment. So this enhances the customer experience because for each customer, not every customer will visit every store over the lifetime of a campaign. Most customers will visit one store and perhaps maybe even see a second store. So the consistency of the narrative that you as a business create, the consistency of that campaign is also preserved. And then you can future-proof any of your ideas. So you can use the digital twin in AR and VR. You can feed it into your AI and get all kinds of feedback, posing inquiries. You can step into a VR environment where you've got all the stores lined up next to each other and jump from one into the other store to get a feeling for what that experience is going to be of that new campaign. So this is a wonderful tool set. And just to illustrate to you what we've done here on the right-hand side, we visited the store, we took some photos outside the store, we did a 3D scan using an iPad. Of course, with SketchUp now, you can use Scan to Design. And then we created a 3D model in SketchUp. So that is part of the workflow that we're going to explain today. All right, so let's go a little bit into the detail of this. So your digital twin that you can create, it creates visualization and design accuracy. Of course, for every campaign, you might want to adjust lighting. You might want to consider product placement. You want to look at how different materials will look in the window dressing, how different materials will behave in the different store environments. And so you can use your digital twin for incredibly fast iterations and approval processes. So imagine that the more stores that you have to get approval on, the more design time that will eat up, and you are held accountable to the amount of campaigns that your brand wants to execute across the year. So your timelines or deadlines in that sense are pretty unmovable. But you need to work within the time given to you as a team. So here is a wonderful way of using that. Now, if you want to create efficient collaboration between teams, imagine this. If you have a global retail brand, let's say operating out of Germany, and you might have a creative design agency in the United States, and you might want to execute the installation process in the stores that are in South Africa. Then you need to work across quite a few locations, time zones, and teams. So this is a good example of how you can ensure that there's consistency across campaigns globally without the need for excessive travel or without the need for excessive project management from the head office. The regional office or the regional installation team can continue with what they're doing, knowing full well what the corporate identity or the campaign identity dictates, how the creative team in another country has come up with a good idea, and how you are going to execute it in the point of origin. Then, for the sake of cost and efficiency, this digital twin that we've now created, in which you're going to execute all these campaigns, if you want to change sizes of one of your elements, instead of making a physical mock-up or go through a costly prototyping phase, you can digitally dress up all these windows, right? So this will eliminate that cost. Now, of course, we need to get used to these techniques. Not everything feels sensory, very well explained if you don't see it physically, right? So you might create a digital mock-up, put on some VR goggles, and then stand in front of the window. You get an impression of what that looks like. It might not be completely photorealistic. It doesn't carry any sense. You can't feel any textures. And so there are some drawbacks in this solution. But for all intents and purposes, considering how many campaigns you might do in the year, the drawback of having to create a physical mock-up and the time that this costs, the digital creation creates a level of speed and efficiency that the mock-up simply can't match. The installation precision. So the digital twin can easily be shared with the installation team. And if we place our digital twin inside of layout and we share all the different views and all the different perspectives and all the different installation guides with our team, then we can really easily create a installation template or a sign-off template for our marketing team, so that you can set up a display in a flagship store using your digital twin. You can ensure that the dimensions and the placement of the fixtures and props match the design. And you can have all your specifications listed on one side, all your artwork and fitments guides specifically for that store in place. So this will avoid doing costly reworks on site, right? A piece of vinyl or fabric banner might be too short or too long. You might need to make adjustments. You want to iron out all those issues. And as your installation teams get more and more comfortable with installing multiple campaigns across the year, of course, they will also come back with feedback on all these different installation aspects. So this becomes a scalable solution for multi-store campaigns, right? As we've discussed, you can create digital twins of every single store. If you manage that globally or locally, you can ensure that everything is accurate, and you can then produce it across hundreds of stores worldwide. And in this case, we were working with a client that had over 30 stores that needed monthly changes. And so you can take a look at how all of this plays out. I will share with you at the end of this session in the description the links to all of these if you want to rewatch this outside of the presentation. But for now, I'll just demonstrate to you how this looks over 5 stores. So here you can see the window dressing, the fabric banners that sit on the wall, how the vinyl is applied to the windows, and how across different stores this shows in various manners. So in the demonstration, we will go through these 5 stores and we will create an imaginary brand. We'll create a brand of our own. We'll create a campaign, and then we'll apply that campaign to the different windows. Let's get out of this. What more? Well, we can enhance the customer experience and personalization. These are some bigger topics that you'll hear about over years to come, and this is sort of the trending ideas that people are talking about and discussing. What you can do, of course, with a digital twin is you can create an overlay. If you've got any cameras or sensors inside the store, you can do, let's say, heat mapping of high traffic zones in your store. So you can consider the whole store design, create a heat map of how customers interact in the store space, which spaces, which product displays they visit the most, which areas they tend to avoid. And then you can overlay that heat map in your digital twin, in your SketchUp model, and you can see which areas to tweak so that you can get better customer engagement throughout the store space. And there are many more ideas and variations of this kind of thinking in which we in the future will see people using digital twins. Like this. If you future-proofed your retail experience with any digital interactive engagement like AR or VR, then you can see what here some of the sportswear brands have done, where you can place a physical shoe on a touch screen, and then the RFID tag will recognize which shoe or which product you've placed on the table, and hence the interactive table display will change its descriptions, its interactability, and its product explanation for each different product that you place on the table. So you create these very futuristic experiences. Now, anything digital that needs to be developed as a once-off or as a special tool comes with its own significant cost. So the more and more times that you can test these ideas in AR and VR, the more cost-effective you can execute these solutions. All right, so let's talk about the retail environment. So for those of you who don't work in the retail environment, here's a little bit of a background. Early markets and basic displays that we saw, leading up from ancient times to the 18th century. I believe this is a photograph somewhere in the Middle East near Turkey, where you've got a half circular display where all the arches at the bottom were the different storefronts, the display windows, as we would call them in modern times, without glazing in this case. In the 19th century, we see the rise of the department store. So we move from the temporary market space to the more permanent department store environment. A lot of these department stores carry a variety of edibles, daily use items, and we can see that these environments look like the bottom layer or the ground floor of homes, and so in busy cities we see that these front rooms get transformed into small store environments. Now the golden age of display, as it is shown here in the UK or in France, is that people start to really make use of the windows as an innovative idea, and this window dressing, this dressing up of the window space becomes a real way to attract customers. So the consumer industry or consumerism takes hold of people, and we start to purchase more than we necessarily need. And in that environment, to attract more customers to your store allows us, of course, the use of the window display area. Now, the post-war consumerism, the emergence of branding between the 1950s and 70s, so you can think of any time after the Second World War, shows us these more modern variations. So here the branding above the storefront with the Woolworth logo here on a red background. The entrance and the exit really clearly defined. Two storefront windows on left and right hand side of the walkway, and then some specific products and some disclaimers and some call outs talking about discounted products. So then in our current day and age, we see shopping as an experience and digitization. And so here's a wonderful example in contrast to the previous store, where the whole storefront has become digitized. It's become a massive LED screen. It talks about it shows the experience of the life in the city at night. And then even in the back of the store, behind all the product displays, we see people in a sporting moment on what looks like a soccer player. So you can see that the digitization and the inclusion of digital screens in the retail space takes a hold. All right, then a little bit about the psychology of shopping and how much we interact with the storefront window. How much time do we spend looking at a storefront? Roughly 4 seconds. What is the size of a storefront in relation to the store walls? Well, about 8%. So let's say 1/10 of your total wall display area is actually the storefront. And how do you capitalize on that? How do you make good use of that? 70% of all retail purchases are still made in physical stores. Like I iterated previously, we can create beautiful VR engagement with our designs within our marketing teams and our campaign and strategy teams. And so why do we still go to physical stores? Because of the sensory experience. We want to go there because we want to touch things, want to smell something, want to engage with the person who sells us the product in a knowledgeable manner. We want to see beyond the product that we want to buy. We go to a store for one product. We might make multiple purchases because by association of that one product that we set out to purchase, we saw a whole other variety of things that we either had need for or a desire to make that purchase. So this is how windows fit into the retail space. Well, 80% of customers are more likely to enter a store if there's an eye-catching window display. So perhaps not every person that's entering your store has done so determinately. They left their home space, they left their office space after a long day at work. They walked through the city center and they saw an attractive window display. You might engage with people who had no intention of visiting your store that day, but because of what you created in the window, they now want to come inside. 24% of people report making an impulse purchase. So an attractive window display might not just attract a person to come into the store that they initially hadn't planned to do so, but 24% of those people might even make a purchase. And 30% of all stores with creative window displays see an increase of foot traffic by up to 30%. So comparatively to stores where there's not such a good window display or where there simply isn't space in the physical realm for window dressing, you can see that there's a 30% difference in foot traffic. All right, so why? Well, as we draw people in, we strategically design these displays and we combine our creativity with a focus on product. So retailers can not only attract attention, but they can create a lasting impression that drives customers to engage and be loyal to the brand. So how does that play out? And how do we see that? Well, we can see that especially with the branding, with the brand name brightly or illuminated above the store, people's attention is attracted to your store. We can design a experience at the front of the store. Here's an experience to try on a different running shoe. and much like a game environment, we're told that we start here. This is the start of the level. This is the start of the experience. So a well-designed display can actually really draw customers in, and we boost that foot traffic and sales if we do it well. 80% more people walking in. We communicate our brand identity and our values. So we set a expectation, but we also communicate what our values are and what we stand for. What is the identity of our brand? Are we luxurious? Are we sustainable? Are we innovative? Are we focused on trending? So it sets a tone for what people will expect inside. So you might actually create the opposite of what you wanted. You might actually create a level of attraction by making an incredibly beautiful storefront display. But the store itself beyond might not be as attractive. So how do you balance that? If we showcase product, we can also showcase a promotion. And thinking of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, thinking along the lines of end of season sale, as temperatures change and different types of garments are needed. We tend to advocate that our bestsellers, our collections are ending, new collections are coming in. So this is a wonderful way to make customers aware of the change in the collections. And then last but not least, in this environment, we can also engage emotionally and creatively in a way that makes it a deeper, meaningful, memorable experience for a customer. We're not just shopping for the sake of it. We're shopping for needs. We're shopping for basic requirements in people's lives. We're using creative storytelling to draw people's attention to certain environmental aspects. We're talking to the customer about the issues that we face as a global population on any given day on our dear Mother Earth. And so in this scenario, the storefront is talking to us about the topic of plastic and the topic of waste and how we should emphasize recycling amongst all peoples. And here the idea was that if the description is clear enough and draws the customer to awareness, it will also drive the customer to action, to recycle better and be more attentive to this. And the way that it is displayed to us is not so much that the storefront is a display of bottles, it is that the whole store has become full of bottles. So trading in the store has been suspended, and the whole store is now full of bottles, and the actual storefront, the window, has a vinyl text that draws our attention to the call to action. All right. So what we're going to do in the workshop element is, of course, talk to you about visual merchandising, specifically in the storefront. So we're not going to talk so much about merchandising and creating visual window displays in the store. We're only talking about the window today. Most of my inspiration and most of my guidance in this aspect has come from this wonderful book called Visual Merchandising by Tony Morgan. It's now in its 4th or 5th edition. You can find this book easily on Amazon or any local good bookstore close to wherever you are in the world. And so much of what I want to discuss today in terms of topics and ways of communicating to you what is important has come out of this book. So I cannot, I just want to highly recommend it to you. So we're going to talk about store window design, how we arrange products, props, visual elements, and how we attract attention to what we're doing. We communicate the brand identity. We entice the passerby to enter the store. And so this art and science, this compelling first impression that we're trying to create, this balance between the customer's emotional intelligence and our physical manufacturing and prop making, that is going to tell a story for us as visual merchandisers today. So we're going to talk about product selection. So our philosophy, our way of thinking is that we don't want to overcrowd the window with too many products, that's going to overwhelm the viewer. As I said before, we only have sort of 4 seconds to draw people's attention to the storefront. We could be talking about new arrivals, we could be talking about discounted items, we could be talking about the end of season sale. So all our promotional material is going to align with our marketing objective here. So hopefully our digital marketing also is aligned to our physical marketing. Our storefronts are hopefully telling the same story as our digital marketing, as those two should integrate. Our storytelling and themes, Hermé does a wonderful, does a really good job with their visual retail designers in illustrating this here in this image. The first thing that pops into your head here, right, is that we're talking about some space, some outer space engagement. A theme has been set for us that maybe the materials that are being used are in some way related to astro engineering. Maybe some of the stylizing of this aims back at the 1960s and the 1970s when we see the first moon visits. And so all of these things speak to us in such a captivating way. As space is definitely a trending topic at the moment with the advancements that we're making in the rocket industry. So we can engage with customers and we give them a context to our products, but we're also creating a fun way to interact with our customer. This is definitely one of those ones-offs, but by using perspective, by using props and the actual product, we create a really engaging platform. Lighting and color are so important in these situations. We want to strategically use lighting to amplify or exemplify. We want to illustrate, we want to highlight a certain portion or a certain section of the window. We want to create a mood, we want to evoke emotions. We want to create soft lighting or harsh lighting. We want to set the energy that you might experience in the store by illustrating it in the window. And so all these tonalities will speak to us. If we go back to that first statement of not overcrowding the window, we want to focus on simplicity. We want to create a focal point. Sometimes the focal point, like here, is a mannequin. Avoiding clutter, the key product that we want to showcase here is on the mannequin. The jacket, the jersey here in question is the main item. The bag is secondary. The folio that's hanging up to his left-hand side is another one. The scarf or the umbrella are sort of third level elements, right? All these things fit together, but the most important thing is perhaps the jacket and the pants. So that becomes the focal point of our campaign, and that's how each time we want to create a display that focuses our potential customer on the main thing. And then using signage and messaging, especially here in this case, focused on selling something at the end of a life cycle, at the end of at the end of a season. This illustrates to us what we can and what we can't do. Right? Buy one, get one free. What can you do? You can buy one. What do you get? You get one free. Okay, this is a very easy to understand premise. As a customer, if I walk in now, I'm going to walk in expecting a spring sale. So we're selling all the late winter, early summer items. And this spring collection is about to leave the store. This is my last chance, this last opportunity to engage with these products, to purchase them and to use them. And the benefit for me is that because the collection is leaving the store and all the summer things are coming in, I get a significant discount. So the brand messaging here is important. I'm not trying to use very long sentences because, again, there's only this sort of 4-second window in which we can attract the customer's attention. All right, so that's enough for today about the retail environment that we've been talking about, the retail history, the way of doing things in retail. I want to go back to the topic that we're addressing of optimizing our workflow using SketchUp, specifically with the digital twin. So here's the workflow introduction that I want to share with you today. The client that we worked with at Studio JDB was a SpaceFit retail implementation, a local creative implementation team and installer for sports brands in South Africa. We were asked to set up the seamless SketchUp workflow for creative, client approval, manufacturing, print, and installation. So that's a mouthful, right? You create a digital twin in SketchUp so that you can put all the creative campaigns in there and client approves what you have designed. So the sports brands that SpaceFit in this case deals with, they have a creative director, they have a marketing manager. They will approve on the campaign first. Then SpaceFit as a business needs to do its own manufacturing. Not that they will do any and every manufacturing, but for what they can do in-house, they will. And the printing, etc. And then the installation. So between these 5 different approval processes, we need to present a digital twin model, a layout template that speaks either to all of them or specifically to each of them. Now, before we came onto the scene and helped them to develop this system, they were using spreadsheets mostly, and spreadsheets are wonderful ways to convey information. It's just that sometimes they can feel cumbersome to create as a template. It's sometimes that, unlike SketchUp, they don't have necessarily dynamic components or quantity takeoff capability, and so they can feel horribly manual. They take up a lot of time in that sense. They can also be automated, but they're not necessarily a visual tool. So you might feel that you come stuck with a spreadsheet where something in the store design changes, or something changes in the way that the brand engages with the customer in the store itself, and that you can't translate what is visually available to the customer onto the spreadsheet. So how were they using their spreadsheets? Well, it had all the elements, the sizes, the substrates, and the quantities. It had rows for different store zones versus new and existing elements. And it had the storefront photo to identify the premise. So you can see that it's difficult to engage with much more visual information than just a storefront photo, right? You can't navigate through that photo. That is a still image. Okay, well, during the process of engaging with them, we used a presentation format. So we switched from an Excel sheet to a PowerPoint presentation. And this had multiple photos, right? Multiple photos and on-site measurements that were taken. So they were using 2 tools. They were now using a spreadsheet, a PowerPoint document, or sometimes exported as a PDF. And it showed all the dimensions of the windows, the lighting, the floor area that you could use for your activation element, for your campaign. And then the spreadsheet backed that all up with all the element sizes, substrate, and quantities listed so that you could manufacture. All right, then what did we propose and how are they currently operating afterwards? Well, we created a point cloud-based SketchUp model. We've got a laser scanner that we use for retail spaces. You can also use an iPad or your phone to do some laser scanning. You can then create that point cloud. You can use that to create your SketchUp model, your digital twin. You can take 360 photos and you can do wall-by-wall photography as we've showcased here. And so these 3 visual elements, the point cloud, the 3D SketchUp model, the 360 photograph or the 360 video, and the wall-by-wall face-on photos, they all show you different levels of detail and specificity. So they're all great as information methods, and they all can live together in the cloud, right? You can put the point clouds in a point cloud directory. You can store all your photos on Google Photos as a way to engage with the 360 photos. And you can create a gallery for each store or a photo album for all the wall-by-wall photos. So we created a layout file for creative, a layout file for production, and a layout file for installation. So we used the same digital twin in each of these layout files, but using the digital twin to illustrate different levels of detail. So for the creative, of course, we're looking purely at how the customer engages with the space and if it all looks right and operates properly for engagement. In the production file, we're trying to ensure and showcase to the manufacturer what the best way of manufacturing is, or what specifically we want manufactured how and using what materials. And then for the installation team, we try to create an efficient and effective document that illustrates how many items need to be installed when and where, in which areas of which specific store. And then last but not least, we did not do away necessarily with the spreadsheet, but we kept our spreadsheets for packaging and for DTP. So for desktop publishing, for all the artwork setup, we kept the spreadsheets. And so what you then end up with is a point cloud, visual information, layout files to present to the different teams, and the spreadsheets. And the wonderful thing here is that each of these pieces of information also operates as a backup for one another. The spreadsheets, of course, have information that historically was available, so that is useful. The layout files comprehend all the ways of installing manufacturing and creative, but they also have a backup of the SketchUp model embedded. And then the photos and the point cloud models show us the physicality space at a point in time. And we can update these budget and timing dependent with a certain frequency, so that we have a historic view of how our brand evolved. So in conclusion, we had a team that operated using a storefront photo and a spreadsheet. We helped them to transition, or we helped them in the transition process to use photos in detail for each zone using a presentation document and a spreadsheet. And then lastly, we had a LiDAR model, 360 photos, wall-to-wall photos, creative in SketchUp and layout, production in SketchUp and layout, and installation in SketchUp and layout. So that brings us to the workflow that we adhere to. And this, depending on how many stores you operate in, it can be quite a laborious process. So maybe set out with your team to do this over the course of a season, over the course of maybe an annual financial year. And what you would want to do is you want to collect as much data as possible, right? So perhaps you can visit your store in the morning before opening time or after closing time. And you can take all your photos, you can bring with your iPad or your LiDAR scanner, and you can make that point cloud scan. You can assemble that scan, you can do an inside and an outside scan separately of each other. You can then build those digital twin models, you can insert all your campaign elements, and then of course you can create your various outputs for your different teams. Now a little bit from our process. In our data collection, together with the SpaceFit team, we made sure that we used a measuring tape to measure each individual element. We used a 360 photos to give you a visual representation of the space. So if you're dealing with teams that don't know how to use a measuring tape or they don't know how to use a LiDAR scanner, the middle of the road method, right? In this case is to use 360 photos. Then for the more technical advanced people, you give them access to the LiDAR scan. And you can use SketchUp Scan to design, or you can use a Trimble scanner or any other scanner within your price range to collect that kind of data. Now, the accuracy of this is also important. So if you have very specific manufacturing requirements, then please use a measuring tape so that you are operating within a millimeter accuracy. If you're using a LiDAR scanner of any various brand, you might have to deal with an accuracy that is smaller or larger than 10 millimeters or larger than, let's say, half an inch. So you want to make sure that you capture this data, but that you also capture this data with the purpose in mind, with the end goal in mind. So it's no use to take a point cloud scan and then to expect people to take measurements within the point cloud scan that give you the exact accuracy of, let's say, a fabric frame that you have in the storefront window, right? You would expect that the fabric frame is measured with the Stanley measuring tape, and sometimes we don't need that level of accuracy. But especially once you have a silicone beaded fabric frame and you need that tension fabric to snap into place, you want to make sure that that is accurate right from the start. If for some reason you don't have that accuracy requirement, let's say you're using vinyl and the vinyl is always printed with a significant amount of bleed, then you can use a point cloud scan or even an iPad scan to give those measurements to your manufacturing team. But over time, hopefully your installation team will take note of some of the issues or the intricacies of installing all these elements, and they will use a measuring tape that they have on hand to maybe remeasure or refine some of those measurements. And in line with that, the relationship between your design team and your installation team becomes so important, and you want to really foster a culture of appreciation for one another, so that the data that you get back from site gets incorporated in your design model, and that you're not just focused on creating the creative element in the design process, but that you as the creative design team also enhance or increase the level of accuracy on behalf of your installation team. So that point cloud assembly here, we see that sort of low level accuracy from the iPad app. This was an assembly between an outdoor scan and an indoor scan. So putting these two together allowed us, together with the photos of the installation space, to create a really accurate point cloud scan and really accurate measurements of the storefront window to draw out the store. So the actual store measurement, whether the store is 100 by 100 foot, 10 by 10 meters, 30 by 30 meters, or 31 meters, or 101 feet, that's not necessarily the accuracy that we're looking for here. We're looking here for the accuracy for the window. So the window is measured with the measuring tape, and the store is scanned with an iPad. So this creates a wonderful model in which we can really understand how the space works, how the customer engages in the space, but the accuracy for manufacturing comes from the measurement using the measuring tape. So here's a digital twin model created from the point cloud and that on-site measuring. And here we've illustrated in sort of the red bases and the hanging elements and the fabric elements in that sort of beach sand beige. What is possible here? And so the campaign elements on the windows are standing behind the window as a fabric frame. They can be seen from both the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the store. And then our output variations in our SketchUp model. When we create the SketchUp model, we make sure to tag everything between the exterior and the interior, so that you can see as the creative or the installation team what is required of us. And so we have ways to create a layout output where you don't see the outside walls, you only see the inside installation elements. And if you want to see all of that specifically in a sales campaign, let's say at the end of a season, then you can create layout templates that show shoe insert, apparel call out, mood board elements, lightbox fabric frames, the sock or the sleeve that sits over the sensomatic, the security gate at the entrance of the store. We see the lightbox fabric banners and their sizes. All of this fits into that one point cloud model that we've created. All right, so this is where we end the demonstration up to this point of our workflow. And now we're going to go into the hands-on demonstration where we will discuss the model at length. So in this part, we're gonna go through the exercise of creating your own digital twins, creating your own shopfront windows and a layout document to be able to explain everything that you've designed and created to your team. So what I want to do in this session is we're going to do a little bit of a case study intro. We're going to then demonstrate it to you, show to you how it works as a multi-retail store exercise. And then I'm not going to do, of course, the store exercise with guidance and assistance as we would have done in the workshop. I will leave you to do that yourself. Again, if you've got any questions about this or remarks while you're practicing yourself within this exercise, feel free to reach out to me on YouTube, on LinkedIn, wherever. Okay, best thing to do to follow along is go to the 3D warehouse and then type in the letter S for snake, dash 1201, and then press search. You will then be able to download the same exercise file, the same SketchUp exercise file as I'm going to start working in for this demonstration. I'll give you some time to do that. While you are doing that, let me just elaborate. So we're going to work through 5 stores. So I've got 5 stores in this SketchUp model, and we can use them in both SketchUp and in layout. So that will help. For the layout file, we're going to just set up something from scratch. I'm just going to use a template. I suppose it would be amazing if you could download layout files also from the 3D warehouse, but that's a conversation for another day. For now, each store that we're going to work on, right? Each store is going to be a window dressing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use a made-up brand, right? We're going to just make up a brand of our own. And we'll use a little AI engine like a DALL-E or some Midjourney kind of imaging tool. And then that will allow us basically to create a bit of a brand. We'll make up a brand from scratch. And we'll think our way through this process. What kind of product are we going to sell? How we're going to display it? We're going to use these 5 store fronts that I've given to you in the exercise file to speed up our process. Because I want to not so much focus on how to draw something in SketchUp. I want to really focus on the workflow between SketchUp layout and how you can create all these assets and then start to optimize your asset usage across your campaigns. Now, we'll be using, as I said in the first part of this demonstration, we'll be using Affinity Designer as our preferred tool to set up files for print. So I'll demonstrate that to you throughout the process as well. If you're using an Adobe tool or any other image creation tool, that's not a problem at all. Feel free to do that. But you'll find there will be some slightly different tools. Hopefully everything else will feel the same in your preferred software. Okay, we're not going to go to the conclusion and Q&A. We're going to just jump out of this presentation, and then we're going to jump into the SketchUp file. This is the SketchUp file you're going to download. So if you're struggling with that, let me show you here. Go to the 3D warehouse on the left-hand side, your large tool set. I'm going to download S-1202. Did I type that right? Maybe I'm not getting it because I am I'm typing this straight after I set it up in the cloud. Let me just type it with a capital. No. Basecamp. Sorry, I don't know exactly why I'm not getting the result that I wanted. But there are 2 files. So this is 1744 is the other file. S1202 is the exercise file for Basecamp 2024 for this session. So if you download that file, you can find it there. Once downloaded, S1202 will look like this. So you've got 5 stores with five scenes, each scene for a different store. Okay, each store, and I'm going to show you this starting with the tags, each store will have a store tag group and a campaign tag group. So that's just important to look at. Let's start with the store tag group, right? There are some tags here that hopefully make sense to your retail drawings. There's a Windows tag, a Sensormatic, the security gates, a mannequin, lighting, flooring, environment, digital display, ceiling, and base. So I'm just going to turn all of these on and off to illustrate to you what they are doing. So this removes the windows with the glazing, this removes the Sensormatics, this removes the base, the red base that you see on the left. This removes the ceiling, the digital display, whether it's a TV or an LED wall. The environment in this scene is the wall above the windows and the back wall that holds the fabric frame on the left. The flooring sits on its own layer or on its own tag. The lighting, there's no mannequin in this store. And then everything that's left is then not from the store but from the campaign, right? So I'm going to turn the tags back on and then just minimize the folder of tags, and then I can also hide the folder. So now I've hidden the folder of the store, and then all that's left and visible to me is the campaign element. So I've got a Windows vinyl, a floor vinyl, a fabric banner, some DTP elements, and a banner system. So you can see I can hide all of these, and then nothing is visible in the model anymore. Let's turn the store back on. This process repeats itself for each of the 5 stores. And I've drawn the stores in close proximity to each other so that you can see a model with 5 stores visible to you. This makes it relatively easy to jump between the different stores in VR. It makes it relatively easy for your different teams to say, okay, what is the difference between this store and this store, or maybe this store and that store? And so you can see the differences and do a comparison. It also keeps the file relatively tidy. I sometimes even make an effort to keep the spacing between each model or between each store the same, so that the distances are relatively equal. And then when you're in layout, of course, you want to zoom in, you want to highlight one store. So once I'm looking at this store, I don't want to see the floor of that store. So I might even hide all of these stores. You can see I've locked some elements. I'm just going to unlock that. I might just want to save my scene with all those other things hidden. All right, so that's just a little tip. And then you can see here, as it goes to scene 2, it's store 2, etc. Now, for some reason, if you find it difficult to identify the different stores, what I would recommend is just to create some 3D text. Let's just use a standard Arial black font, and I'm going to type in store in caps, store 3. Give that a bit of an extruded thickness and a height, and then place that. Right? I'm just going to place that along the base. So now it's easy to identify store number 3. You would hopefully have a store name, a city, or the name of a shopping center, and then make the scenes and the store name the same, so that scene 3 now becomes store 3, right? In my example. Okay. That is about the basics of the SketchUp model. Now, if you unhide everything, you'll see that all the artwork that is applied to the store is also like visible as a mini collection here, lying flat on the ground in front of every store. The reason for that is that in the 3D perspective view that we're going to set up in layout, we want to look at the store like this. But if I switch the camera now to a top elevation, and let's say that I've hidden all the stores, right? Or not even. If I change my camera to only look at this selection, I here have a nice comprehensive overview of everything that gets installed in the store. So hopefully you'll understand that the trick here is to set up all these physical elements in the store as components, so that if you make changes to the components here, it then reflects automatically in the store as well. So this fabric banner will then match with that fabric banner, this base with that base, this vinyl with that strip over here. These two sensimatics are standing there, and then this vinyl 6 times is mounted to these windows there, right? So that is the overview of each store, and hopefully you do that then correctly across every environment, so you can see how that grows and changes. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to minimize this, and let me see where I can find some form of an AI tool. Let's go to a standard. Let's go to a standard DALL-E thread. And what we want to do is we want to create a brand. I don't know exactly what we should create. I suppose what we feel like today, right? Hi there. Let's create a outdoor hiking brand with a specific flavor of product quality. I'm just rambling on here. Specific flavor of product quality aimed at the global traveler who has an affinity with South Africa. Let's make it local. All right, the brand name ideas, the tagline, a core product offering, a logo, color palette. Okay, great. So here's more than enough information for us to play around with. And I don't want to spend all day looking at this suggestion, but let's start with a name. We've got 5 names here. The word Ubuntu and felt, they sound relatively specific to South African culture. Felt venture, I suppose you could say that's more like an Afrikaans name. And Ubuntu is, of course, a well-known African word, even outside of most African cultures. So that could work quite well. Drakensberg outfitters. The Drakensberg is a specific mountainous area in South Africa. So that might make it a little bit too localized. We do want to aim and appeal to the global traveler. Let's go with Ubuntu Trails for now, or Trails, I should say. Okay, Ubuntu Trails. Tagline: inspired by the wild, built for the world. Okay. Let's not repeat the word Ubuntu twice. That gets a little bit too much. Okay, let's say we want brand name 2 and tagline 3. Let's use brand name number 2 and tagline number 3 to design a logo. Okay, let's DALL-E create a beautiful image for us. As useless or useful that might be as a rough concept. I'm not gonna try and spend too much here. Okay, it has created logos within logos. This looks like the map of South Africa combined with a variety of other elements. Maybe we're not being very specific in our prompt, but I understand what's happening here, and I don't mind it. Let's just start with the top here. It indicates that the brand was created in 1999. It has a South African flag. It's got the boba tree in the center of the African map. It cuts out Lesotho for all intents and purposes, and Swaziland, which has a different name these days. Ubuntu Trails inspired by the wild built from the world. Okay. All right. We're just going to take a screenshot of that. We're going to be really lazy today. Because if I download this, as far as I know, it downloads it as a web-based image. Yeah, that's not going to help us. Let's take a screenshot out of Snip and Sketch on Windows and save that to our desktop as our logo. All right. And then let's go back to our thread here. And let's say we want a color scheme. Please create a color scheme for our brand. Okay, olive green, burnt orange, and beige. Yes, this all ties in quite easily. Can we use hex colors in? Can we use hex colors in SketchUp? I feel like I'm a little bit lost here. Large thumbnails. Let's create a new material. No, we cannot use hex. Okay, never mind. That's not too difficult. Let's rather go back and then for a moment, instead of using a hex color, so okay, please create an image of these colors with squares. Hopefully it understands what we just said. Or using squares would probably have been a better prompt. There we go. I mean, it tries to put the values in as text. Can we save the image from here? No, it's still gonna give us a web image. Fascinating, that idea. Okay, let's do the same thing with the screenshot. And let's save that image. And call it our color palette. And then let's just really easily, let's just drag our logo into our space here. And then using the scale tool, make it a little less obvious. And then our color palette, we'll drag it off to the left before we lose our place. If you ever get lost to the scale handles, you can set up a shortcut, which in my case is the letter K, to see through your model so that you can find things. So when you press the letter K, you can see all these lines. All these lines become dashed. So then when you select something, select something like the fabric box behind here, and you now press the scale tool. You can't see the scale tool at the top, right? So press the letter K and then all of that becomes visible. That's just a navigation tip. Let's stay on our current process. Okay, so we've got the Ubuntu Trill logo and we have the color palette for our brand. And then what we hopefully now can do is we can update all these assets to show you the use of this. And what I'm going to do for this exercise is I'm not, of course, going to use these physical models as they are, apart from the Sensormatic. We're going to create our own version using these stores. And as you can see, at one or another stage, I broke up this model, which I did clearly horribly. So let's actually just delete all the assets for the campaign, and then our store should show up clean. apart from these boxes. Okay, let's remove these boxes. Okay, that would be a clean store. Then the only thing that is left now is the Sensomatic. And the Sensomatic is still a component. No, it is a group. Because I was going to say if I make a change here, no, it is still. Yeah, if I make a change in the Sensomatic, it will update across all Sensomatics through the project. So that could be easy for us going forward. Okay, now let's dress this. Let's dress this up in this exercise. The Ubuntu color that we have here, we're going to take these existing stores that have a red stroke at the top here, and we're going to make that red stroke the orange. So what I'm going to do is really simply, I'm going to explode this image, and then I'm going to make a selection of the orange here, which looks almost like a bit of a texture. Yeah. And I'm going to say make unique texture. And then you can see here in the entity info box that in our materials, this texture has now become a color palette #1 unique texture. I'm going to edit that and say don't use the texture image, just use the color of the texture. So that is now our color value. So it has set that color value automatically based off the average of the texture color, right? And if you edit that, you can still go to the RGB values and make adjustments here, but this gives you a rough representation of what the color values actually are. What we'll do is we'll change the name from color palette to Ubuntu primary color 1. Okay. And that color we're now going to apply on our red streak here. And the other thing we can do is actually we can sample this color, this 20 red, and we say edit this value following an object. So basically red 20 is now become our primary color, and that then should reflect in all the other reds as well. But it hasn't, because these colors are named differently. That just goes to show that that model looks a little bit clumsy. But we can do the same thing. We can also change the color of that. Now, has that been a little bit more consistent? No. I do wish that these colors were the same value. So as you can imagine, it is important to ensure that all your color values stay the same. Okay, now we seem to have captured all the orangey colors and switch them from the red to the orange. Then let's take our logo and let's explode that. And we're just going to push-pull this into the shape of a box. And then for the shape of the box, we're going to sample our orange, and we're going to paint everything apart from the front of the box that orange, so that our primary color gets used a little bit more. And then we'll scale this and make it a component, and we'll call this logo lightbox 1. And then using the move tool, we'll make this vertical. And then we can hopefully place this above every entrance. And then scale it up. That barely fits in this store. So let's make it a little bit smaller. And then just place it as best as possible in the center. 160 millimeters. Okay. That component we're going to then duplicate, obviously, and we'll pick it up in the center and then hang it here, if possible, in the center. And then here we will hang it up in the center, but of course we'll move it to the front. There we go. And this probably we can adjust almost to the exact proportions of this window size. yeah, actually, let's leave that there for a moment. Let that hang there. We'll make another copy. And we'll stick it here. For the sake of the exercise, we're not going to fuss too much about the snapping points and making sure that it's exactly the right scale. So that sits above the glazing there. And then this is our store number 5. And we can do the same thing. Scale that down a little bit. And then move that to the front here. That sits, yeah, top to bottom. That's actually quite a good fit. All right, so now the orange ties in with the edging around the glazing of most stores, and the Ubuntu Trials logo is there, and then that is our image. Now, if for some reason, of course, this is an AI referenced image, which we did really quickly. If for some reason you now are able to update this and create the actual logo within, let's say, your new concept store. Simply by editing this component that we have scaled to ratio across all 5 stores, it will then update the logo, of course, for all 5 stores. So that would be a quick fix. And our component is already making our life a lot easier across all 5 stores. However, if the ratio of the logo or the specific size and orientation of the logo changes store by store, then you have to create unique components. So then you have to approach each store perhaps individually. That's not an issue. It just means it can't be an automated process as much as we wanted it to be. Okay, so that is the logo. Now let's start with some of our display boxes. So let's say that we create a display base. You'll make that a foot in height, or maybe that's a bit much, half a foot in height. And we'll create a component called display box or base, display base. We'll just duplicate that piece of geometry and then scale it not proportionately, and to create like a plinth. And then we say make this component unique. And then we change the name from display base to display plinth or display column, whatever you use. And then what we should do is we should give them each a color. So we're going to give them a color and not a texture for now. And we're going to use this gray or gray-green, this olive green. And we're going to use this this burnt brown. So let's say make unique texture. Oh, my mouse has disappeared for a moment. And let's make that a unique texture. Let's sample the green. Let's go into this component, stick the texture on. That tiles horribly. We'll do the same for the brown. Again, that tiles, here it doesn't tile that badly. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn the texture image off, and the same for our green, so that it looks like a clean texture. And then, oh, excuse me there. And then the plinth we're going to place on top of the base. And we're going to create a primary plinth and a secondary plinth. So I'm going to make this shorter, and then we're going to make that also a unique component, and we'll call it display plinth dash small. So now we've got display plinth small, display plinth, and display base. So this we will now call display plinth dash large, just so that we can make each component a little bit more descriptive. And then we're going to display it in this store first. And I already get the feeling that the base, of course, is way too small for either of our solutions. So we're going to go to our tags. We're going to hide the store window so that it's much easier to navigate through the space. The front location I like. I just don't like the lack of depth. So I'm going to scale that up to here, and then in its width as well. And then I get the impression that we actually have a little bit more space. So let's create a slightly different environment. We'll make a duplicate of our secondary base and create a bit of a, what shall we say? It almost looks like the podium at the Olympics when they give everyone their medal. Let's put the window back. Okay, now we have this environment. Let's go to our components and to the home button, to the standard components, the sampler, and let's use Semele as an indication of height for people shopping. And I get the idea that the plinths are a little bit low. So let's say that the primary plinth comes up to Semele's waist. I don't know what that is exactly in millimeters or in feet / inches, but as a visual indicator for how tall a human is, we're using Semele today as our appropriate average. Let's hide the windows again, and then we can actually use the measuring tape to learn that is 870 millimeters roughly. So that is just under 3 feet. That might be a bit tall. But for now, we're going to leave this, and we're not going to download a DALL-E created image for our hiking shoes, our final product. We're just going to go to the 3D warehouse and see if there is perhaps a hiking shoe 3D model. And there are some models. Are the filters turned on? No, all results. 3 results in models. That's actually really small. If I just type in shoe, no, if I just type in hiking, maybe hiking boot would be a more appropriate. Hiking boot instead of shoe. Okay, a pair of hiking boots. 12 megabytes, 8,000 pieces of geometry. That might be a bit big. 12 megabytes for a component that has to be duplicated across multiple stores. Of course, in SketchUp 2024 and the upcoming 2025, let's delete these guides. Hopefully, the geometry count doesn't affect our model too much. We can use all kinds of plugins to downsize geometry. So if you end up using this model multiple times, you perhaps want to purge some of the geometry here. And what we'll do for now is we'll just duplicate this component of hiking shoes, and that's the way it would be displayed. The only thing that we're missing now in our window is perhaps a call out or a campaign graphic, or maybe even a vinyl saying this is our new catalog product. So we want to dress this window up a little bit more. And I suppose because this is a hiking environment, we could also change the base of we could change the color of the base to a texture. We could do like leaf material, so we could do a vinyl with that. We could do maybe a piece of track or mud with some car tire profile in it on the front of the plinth, or some boot prints in soft soil. All of these creative ideas we could start playing with, but I don't want to take up too much of your time going through the creative. Let's rather keep our focus on a way of illustrating the workflow. So for now, we're going to go back to ChatGPT and ask one last time to create some campaign images. Please create a campaign image or campaign background wallpaper. And then our second question is, please create a campaign slogan image. Okay, perfect. We're going to refine the campaign slogan image and say, please make the slogan image to a ratio of 4:1, which I hope it understands will make it 4 times as wide as its height. Because the current ratio looks like a 2:1. That might be a little bit rough. No, that really didn't work. Although, what we can do is we can extract part of this image, right? We can extract this little strip, and the strip below it, we might as well. So let's create an image out of this text and save that as a snip. So we save that as campaign slogan 1. And then we're going to save that as campaign slogan 2. In the same manner. Sorry, this snippet tool is a little bit cumbersome. Campaign slogan 2. Yes, that is our second image. And then here, do we prefer this image over the background? Do we prefer this image over that image? I think we're going to use this one for the simple sake that that this doesn't have any text in it. So we're going to go from left to right. Okay, let's minimize that. Let's go back here and let's save this. This will be campaign, not slogan. This will be campaign wallpaper. Okay. All right, let's hide that Windows layer one last time. And then amongst the color palette, we're now going to drag in from our dear desktop. No, not Copilot. From our desktop, the wallpaper. Yes. Scale that down a little bit so that it sits nicely on the side. And then the other images were campaign slogan 1 and campaign slogan 2. My spelling has been atrocious. Okay. All right, so here are our images and our color palette. Now, if we kept this as a little bit of a library, as a bit of a template, what we should do is we should copy that that logo that we created back. This is all in the same plane, and then let's use the scale tool to keep that roughly the same width. So we've got a logo, a color palette, a wallpaper, and 2 campaign strips. And let's explode this and sample this as the campaign wallpaper. Yes. All right, so that we could now position directly against our back wall here and directly onto our LED screen. So the LED screen, we're just going to paint the texture and we're not going to make it projected. One moment. And then in our position of the texture, we're just going to match top and bottom, or we're going to match the height. Let's match the height for now. And then we're going to drag it over so that we don't see the edges of that texture where it looks a little bit like rough wallpaper. Okay, so that would be our Ubuntu LED wall. And then here, we're going to do a vertical fabric frame. Okay, so the digital element, of course, is not going to be a printed graphic that is going to be uploaded hopefully from a media server in the cloud directly to each store. The fabric frame, however, that sits here in the back, that is something that we would have to create specifically for our campaign. So we've got our window vinyls, our floor vinyls, our fabric banners, and our banner system. And we deleted that on purpose previously. What just happened to Semele? Did I? Oh, I was unhiding everything. It was changing the outline of Semele. Let's not focus on that. All right, so we've got the window and we have our banner behind our shoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a simple rectangle and match that to the edges of our base. And we're just going to press the left arrow key to lock in our vertical axes. And we're going to do a size of 2200 millimeters in height. And then we're going to push-pull that fabric frame to be, let's say, about 40 millimeters thick. So that will be the size of our frame. And then what I'm going to do is, as my material, I'm just going to select a color, solid color. Let's select a gray. Yeah, let's select that gray. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the front face and I'm going to paint the inside the same color. No, I'm going to paint the inside white, and I'll tell you why. We're going to make this group and a component, and we're going to call this fabric frame. And now, if we create an image that sits in front of the frame, and I make that a group, if I now accidentally delete the image, I still have the frame, right? So the frame in this store, hopefully we won't destroy this frame. Hopefully we will keep the ratio and the size of this frame the same. So we do a once-off installation of a permanent fabric frame, and each time we can swap out the fabric. So the fabric, I'll just move that element forward and just give it a different color, right? So the fabric sits in the frame, and the frame is a different component than the fabric. So the fabric frame is a component called fabric frame. We could make it a dynamic component, we could make it a unique component, so that in each store where we use the fabric frame, we could create different sizes of it. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it the same in every store. So here's also one of those fabric frames that we had earlier. And I'm going to place this fabric frame here in the corner. And then just rotate that to align with my store here. And then what I could do is I could take this group that we have here and make it a component and call it fabric banner. And then we will sample that background texture, that wallpaper, go into our fabric banner component, make sure that that is also not projected, and then change the position of our texture here. And we're just going to go scale it to the full height, maybe even a little bit bigger. You know, maybe we create a really abstract looking wallpaper. We'll just zoom in on this little detail of the mountain and the stripes. And then we're going to place it in the fabric frame either manually, like I'm doing now, or we can cut this component out and insert it into this component, right? If we do that, if we insert it, you'll see that in the other store, it then also shows up. If I didn't insert it, keeping an eye on what we had here, right? Then it removes it. And now it is a physical object, a free component that is not embedded in the other component. But we do want to do that because it would make our life a lot easier. So now we have two fabric components. We have our plinths, and we could do the same. We could take the base and the short plinth. We could make a copy of that. We could go to the second store, get the same angle right, hopefully. We need to unhide the windows just to see where the window ends here. Make that base not as deep. And then move that plinth here. Let's say we have two plinths. And then the shoe would be displayed here like that. Did I move that glass by accident earlier? It seems like it jumped out of place. Let's put it back the way we hopefully... was about to say, is this glued somewhere? Nope. Let's not focus our attention on that. Okay, and now we can actually do the same thing. We can say now the product is also going to be embedded in the component. So let's delete that here. Let's cut that and then go into this plinth. Let's make this a group so long, and then paste in place our boots. And now we can see that between each store, it updates the plinth with the product as well to be visually the same. So any plinth that we now copy over into each store should then reflect the same result. So we can now really easily switching between campaigns. If we kept this plinth, we should really easily show a different product on the plinth now that we have set up the model one after another with the same product and the same wallpaper. Now, for some reason, if you see a store, let's say this store where there's a lot less window space, right? We could also decide to only show one plinth in each store. We probably want to not have that at 45 degrees. That rotation seems to have been not exactly 45 degrees. Let's bring it back to 0. So let's keep that plinth also in this window. As you can see, what I'm doing each time is I'm scaling the plinths, right? So the plinth has a solid color, and I'm simply scaling the plinth to accommodate our space. And here, what we would probably do is not have 2 times the same plinth. We should probably copy the large plinth here. And then stick that, oh, not here. And then stick that here on the same space. And the windows, as you can see, the windows are getting in the way as a layer when we're setting up the display units. All right. So there we go. Ubuntu Trials now has multiple plinths in the window. There's multiple ways to dress up the store environment, the shop, the window itself. And the only thing that we now need to do to sort of finish off the window look is perhaps install that final strip. So this Ubuntu trial, which we'll do as like strip 1 and strip 2. And then what we can do is draw a rectangle. And again, let's lock that into the vertical axis so that we can make this strip. Let's say that we make this strip the same in height for every store. So we make it 250 millimeters in height, so just under 1 foot. And we can't put that strip directly in front of the shoes. So either we mount it lower, or we mount it all the way to the top. Or actually we don't do it in front of that window, we only do it in front of this window. Just using the scaling tool, we will adjust the size. And then again, we're going to try and keep it similar, at a similar height as the top of the tallest base, the tallest plinth, so that it's easy as a person to recognize it. Or maybe we go to shoulder height, so that it's more in line with eye height. And then we're going to make a group out of that and a component, and we're going to call this component window vinyl 1. Let's call that number 1. And then we're going to make a copy of that, and let's rotate it at 90 degrees. And let's bring it up to the same height and then scale it to the corner. As you can see, I mounted it in front of the glass. You can bring it back to the glass. Don't make it sit exactly against the glass. Keep it a few millimeters off so that the texture doesn't interfere with the glass, because the vinyl doesn't have a thickness. And 2 textures on top of each other in SketchUp often creates a bit of an overlap, and then they don't look proper. So let's call this one, let's make this unique. Let's make this a new component, make it unique and call it vinyl number 2. So we've got window vinyl 1 and window vinyl 2. And then we're going to take the Ubuntu trials texture. Let's explode that and explode this. Going to take that texture, apply it to our component here, unproject it, and the position to be adjusted. And let's use these handles to bring this in place. And we're not going to fuss too much about the ratio of this graphic. We want it to be exactly in our space. And we want the black stripes in there as well. That was not a reference to the white stripes. Okay, that roughly brings, you can see the bottom of the text coming through in the way that it tiles the texture. So let's try to keep that out of view. Okay, that's better. So that is now strip 1, as distorted our image has become once we adjusted that proportion. And then image number 2, again, let's adjust the projection and then the position of the texture. There are all kinds of plugins to make this go a little bit faster and a little less cumbersome, but we're just trying to stick to native tools, showing you that everything is possible in the basic, well, not basic software, but in the starter kit, so to say. And then these vinyls we can then also duplicate across the various stores. So we have option 1 and option 2. And here what we would probably do is do a step and repeat. So we would have 2 vinyls next to each other to make up the full width. And I'm not too worried about showing the vinyl exactly at the right size for the time being. We're still in this sort of early concept phase. And our second vinyl, we actually are going to use it in the window here. So what we'll do is we'll stick it here, and it's a bit skew. So let's align that actually with the windowsill. And then what we're going to do really horribly is we're going to just distort it. We're not going to change the size and the step and repeat of it. And later on, if we get very technical, we should make this a unique component that probably matches the size of each window, so that each window joint is taken into account. And then when we operate in our preferred image editing tool, we can also set up the artwork for each store window to its exact size, so that we can manipulate each artwork as it is relevant to each store. For now, the reason I'm not doing that is because I want to illustrate the campaign to our client without spending too much time having to update my model. So if I want to show a really quick concept, because each component here is now repeated, it will update across all 5 stores without making these components unique to each store's dimensions. So now we have a logo, a wallpaper, our plinths, and our vinyl strips across these various stores. We have a digital display. We've got the secondary option for this other store. And then we have our third store. Now, what we should do to make our installation process faster is we should copy all the assets that we use in each store to our sort of DTP space. So let's hide the windows one last time. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to align a copy of these products. And I'll show you how this works or how this operates. And I'm trying to snap to the same point so that I know they sit all in the same location. And this last one is graphic. And I'm going to put the graphics in the same location. And I'm going to lay them flat on the ground so that you can see them really easily. Get a bit of space between them. And then I'm going to put the logo, the light box, also flat on the ground. All right, so that all sits next to each other. Maybe left aligned if we are really finicky. A little bit more space here. All right, if we now go to a top view and we look at this, then we can see what we are installing for the store. We are introducing a new light box. We've got our sensormatics, we've got our base, and we've got our vinyl. We haven't shown our 3 plinths. We should really do that as well. And then we can lay that flat. And then we go back to that top view. We can now see all the product for this store in a row. Maybe it would be better to put the plinths on top schematically, on top of the plinth, on top of the base. But for now, we'll leave it like this. And then what we're going to do for the campaign is we're going to introduce a new tag, and we'll call this product. And then, of course, I'm going to put our hiking boots in the product layer. And then I'm going to turn product off. I'm going to switch my camera to parallel projection. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a scene and call this DTP Store 3, or as an abbreviation, DTP S3. Okay, so now I've got Store 3 as my store view, and then DTP S3 as my overview of all the elements that I'm going to print or manufacture. This is perhaps not the best way to switch between scenes, because this is store 1 and we were looking at store 3 just now. So let's go back to scene 1 where we were looking at this first store. And then we have all our elements here. So what we'll do is we'll say this is indeed DTP, but it is renamed DTP Store 1. And then let's move this scene left. There we go. So now we can swap between our store, our physical view, and our DTP. For the sake of time, because I feel like we've been recording for an hour now. For the sake of time, we're not going to go through all the other stores as well. I hope that the component use shows itself beneficial to you across the various stores so far. We're just going to go to layout and lay out this specific store in a layout overview so that we can share that with our client and our manufacturing team. And we're going to do that on a blank canvas layout file. We want to save our model first. We don't want to purge anything as of yet. We can leave that for later. All right. I'm going to choose a template. Generally, for installation teams, using the A1 paper is probably the easiest. So we'll use a title block. Oh, sorry, not A1. Generally A4. Excuse me. Generally A4 is the simplest template to use. And we can do a cover page. We can do a cover page for the region that we're operating in, the province or the state. Or we can do a cover page that amplifies the specific campaign that we're working on. However, for this project, what we'll do is the project title, we've got that as an automatic text. So in our document setup, we can go to auto text. We can call the project name, project title, we'll call it Ubuntu Spring Launch. Great. And then the author name, we'll call it basically the store. Or no, actually we'll just do the brand, so Ubuntu. Okay, and I left a space in there. No, that is looking a bit weird. Okay, that should, yeah, that's updates. Probably that space in there was making the text uncentered. And then the project location, unfortunately, is not a tag, but it should be a tag. So let's make a tag out of it. That's project location, and then file, document setup, auto text. Let's duplicate project title, and then call that project location. Yeah, location. And then we'll call it store 1. And we need to remove the space here. There we go, store 1. Then what we're going to do with our scene is we're going to keep this scene that we set up specifically for our manufacturing team. We're going to set that up here, and we're just going to zoom in on that collection of items. Then we're going to duplicate our viewport, and we're going to change it from scene DTP1 to scene 1, which is store 1. And it doesn't adjust the camera angle, so we'll go to our SketchUp menu on the right hand side and say viewport reset all. Okay, that gives us the correct view. Semele is also still here. We should probably hide her under a tag called people. And then we'll zoom in like this. We're not going to install the digital screen, so that's not important. So what we can do is we can change the angle a little bit, just so that we can see that vinyl here on the left. So that everything that has to be installed for this project is visible in one overview. If it's not visible in one overview, of course, we can also create multiple viewports in the same space. So to illustrate that real quickly, let's position our camera here. And then let's position our camera back at the front. Now you can see that the clutter that I've left in this model, in the way that I've arranged what's hidden and visible, of course should be refined a bit, because we don't want to see it that messy. So that you can make sure that all these scenes are preset together with your layout file a little bit more precisely. But for now, we're just going to keep these two as 2 separate viewports. And now we have an overview of what we're going to manufacture, and hopefully a good visual indication of where this is in the store. And then we can draw a simple rectangle here. And we need to create perhaps another layer. Yeah, like that. And this would be our description text box space, like a stamp or a document legend. And then we can create automated text. So we can create a label, right, that describes the automated text. That might speed up some part of our workflow. Or we can create individual text. And if we create individual text, maybe what is then best to do is to create little guides or little snippets. So we can create a text box here. Oh, must type something in it. So we'll just type in the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, the number 4, and the number 5. And then we will fill the space with, let's say, the color orange. And then the text, we will center it and anchor it centered. And we should probably make it bold text. Yeah. And let's actually delete these, because the style is more important in this case. Let's do an outline. And maybe we should dash it. No, just leave it normal. And this is then item 1. So we can go to our legend here and say this is item 1. That corresponds with the viewport here. And that then corresponds with the description here. So excuse me, but that description sits here together with the guide, right? So the text now sits here. And then what we can do is we can say that the stroke, can we remove the stroke? I think we can. Let's not fuss about with that for now. What we can do is we can say that the logo of the Lightbox logo is always going to be the same regardless. So we can say Lightbox, and then hopefully we know the dimension of it, which I will now just do off the top of my head in meters. Lightbox is 1800 millimeter wide by 900 millimeter high. Vinyl to be applied for each campaign. And maybe that text I should put in italics as a special reference, and then a little bit smaller so everything fits on one line. And then this we could copy over, so 5 times. And then this of course becomes number 2, this number 3, this number 4, this number 5. And then hopefully this then gives us a good indication to say this is item 2, this is item 3, this is item 4, and this is item 5. And the large one would be item 6. And then we can predefine each of these texts and these items. And then depending on I'm just going to give each viewport a stroke, so that's a little bit easier to see what is what. Excuse me. Let's copy that starter here and here. Yeah. And let's meet up these lines. So this gives us a bit of an overview. And now in the sensormatics, in the base, in the strip of artwork, in these two scenes we now have the window tag missing. So let's go to store and turn that back on. Okay, that's better. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then Lightbox. We need to change these names. I'm losing track. Number 5 and number 6. And then what I see we didn't do in our model was the fabric in the back. So that would be number 7. And here we call this fabric Lightbox, tall plinth. And hopefully these names won't change as you might use multiple objects throughout the same campaign. Window, vinyl. But if they do change, then it's probably better to make this auto text or label text so that it updates as you update the component objects. Base, security, gate. Okay. And the number 7, that fabric Lightbox, that was our object that was missing. So let's introduce that and stick that in the same spot. And it would probably be neat to make sure that it sits relatively in the same location, right? So this whole row should fit in front of the same store, so that while you're working in the model, everything is easily accessible within the same frame of thinking. And then we'll save that, and it will update here. But that means, unfortunately, that it won't allow us to show the same amount of information. Yeah, there it re-renders. That's great. But it should show like that. So now most of our text has jumped out of place a little bit. So you want to create a bit of a system here to make sure that things don't go flying around all the time. But once this system is locked into place and you've set up your tags and your layers pretty consistently, you shouldn't have to change too much between campaigns and experience hopefully a lot more efficiency. So now everything is labeled. Maybe the colors are a little bit too bright or a little bit too in your face in a schematic like this. So you should simply label and name them, but only make them with a yellow outline in the 3D view, so that the document is still readable and you can work your way through the document without feeling that the colors are screaming at you. And then this probably can align it a little bit better. So I'm sure that there are many more ways with all kinds of other components and layering techniques to automate even a little bit more of this process. But for a first time starting to set this up, this really does tend to give you a good overview. And now this is probably a good page for someone working in the installation process, right? It gives you an overview of where each item sits in the store. You know that this is store 1. This is the front and the side window. These are the items to be installed or to be manufactured. These are the 7 descriptions and technical information of what substrate and material we're using here. If we duplicated this page and we deleted this text box and this bottom overview, and maybe even we deleted the numbers here on the window, then these 2 viewports combined, they could show really easily to the client what this store will look like. So let's zoom out a little bit. Let's look at the store like this. And this close-up we can maintain. Or maybe even we should make the close-up, maybe half the size. And then duplicate that close-up. And then really zoom in on product placement. Right, so here on our boots. Maybe there's a detail that sits on top of the plinth that's really interesting. A specific texture or piece of designed artwork. So here we've got a quick overview of the color usage, the material usage. Maybe material usage is really important for our client. So let's change this viewport to take up about half the space. And then duplicate that viewport here. And then what we can do is adjust the camera to, that material overview. Let's go out of perspective. Make sure we look at the top. So that gives us a nice flat overview. And then what we can do is we can maybe even make this a little bit smaller. And duplicate that viewport and then scroll up a bit to show the artwork specifics. So now we can show a campaign overview to our client, to our marketing manager, and say, look, here's a store overview, here's a detail of the window, a detail of the product, these are the colors we want to use in this campaign, and this is the artwork we use in this campaign. So it feels more like a mood board out of all things than an installation guide. And there's a big difference between this kind of page overview and this kind of page overview in the type of information that you're trying to showcase to a different team. But we're still using the same model. We're using the same digital twin of the store, and we're using the same campaign elements. It's just that different parts of the information are shown, and different level of detail is given to different types of information. So that gives us a good overview between team marketing and team installation to make use of the same layout file. Now you could rearrange your pages so that you could print out page 1 to 3 or page 1 to 7 for your stores, and then page 8 to 14 for your installation guide, right? Still showing the same information across multiple scenes, multiple platforms. So that in short, I don't want to take up another hour. That in short is an overview of how to use digital twins for your storefront windows with a made-up campaign extracted onto layout for your different manufacturing, installation, and creative teams using the same information. I hope that this workshop has given you a clear indication of what SketchUp layout what SketchUp and layout are capable of for the retail industry. I hope that this, within your own retail environment, gives you a good idea of what you can do using simple techniques like components, layering, tags, different scene views to create a workable digital twin space, in which you can really rapidly create creative interactive campaigns, come up with wonderful ideas without feeling like you're being held back by the way that you need to demonstrate this to your teams. So for now, let's move away from these documents and for one last moment go back to our presentation, and let's recap everything that we went through today. So you've been shown that with a clear strategy for auditing and surveying your retail locations, you can create a comprehensive overview of all the different storefront windows that you have between your retail locations. You can use all of that information in a shared cloud space to give access to your own team and to teams outside of your team to that information, so that everyone can comprehend and understand the differences between the various retail locations. I've shown you how you can use your tags and your components to create your master file with all your different stores together to focus on the storefront windows. I've shown you how you can organize your layout file for sharing between your clients and your manufacturing and installation. And I've shown you that using this audit, installation, and creative feedback framework, you can fine-tune your campaigns and make really quick updates to all your different graphical elements and all your props by using components and these master files as a technique. So that is all for this workshop. If you have any questions or things you would like to discuss, I refer you back to the YouTube comments and the Trimble platforms. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can do that on LinkedIn. My name is Joshua de Bruin, and for all the resources that I used and that are highlighted in this presentation, you can find the links here. If you want to reach out to me, please scan the LinkedIn QR code or the Instagram QR code. If you want to give us some feedback on how much you enjoyed or what you were frustrated with within this session, then feel free to scan this code and provide us your feedback. That's all from our side. Thank you so much for watching this session. If you've got any comments or feedback for any other workshops or webinars or instructional videos that I can create for you, please let us know. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself here, enjoyed myself at Basecamp 2024. And if you have never been to a Basecamp before, you can come to the next one in 2026 or to one organized locally. That's it from my side. All the best.